I'm the bedtime storyteller at the Landing. I work an overnight shift there most Fridays, and usually, by the time I arrive, kids are in pajamas, teeth have been brushed, and everyone is winding down for bed. I show up just in time to deliver that one last cup of water and read a few books to boys and girls who by then have some very heavy eyelids. So I thought I might start by telling you one of my favorites. It's a beautiful, old folktale called Stone Soup. And it comes to us from the mists of pre-modern Europe. It goes like this. Some weary travelers come to a village, carrying nothing more than an empty cooking pot. Upon their arrival, the villagers are unwilling to share any of their food with the travelers because there's been a drought in that place for several years and their stores are dwindling. Then the travelers go to a stream and fill the pot with water and drop a large stone into it and place the pot over a fire. One of the villagers becomes curious and asks what they're doing. The travelers answer that they are making stone soup, which tastes wonderful and which they would be delighted to share with the villagers, although it still needs a little bit of a garnish to improve the flavor. Now, the villager anticipates enjoying a share of the soup, so he doesn't mind parting with a few carrots, so these are added to the soup. Another villager walks by, asks about the pot, and the travelers again mention their stone soup, which has not just yet reached its full potential, but it could. More and more villagers walk by, each adding another ingredient: potatoes, onions, cabbage, celery, sweet corn, meat, milk, butter, and then salt and pepper. And finally, the stone, being inedible, is removed from the pot, and a delicious, nourishing batch of soup is enjoyed by travelers and villagers alike. And with their stomachs full, everyone in the village sleeps well that night. I love that story. And I think it is the perfect way to sum up the early days of Skookum. These first 8 magical years have been about sharing, about collaboration, about learning what we might be capable of accomplishing together, about a community rising up with one voice to say, we will make sure that every child from our town has a safe place to call home, a family who loves them, and a chance to make their dreams come true. Because we can do better. We must do better. Our kids deserve better. So, together, we built this thing that we call Skookum Kids to make that happen. We each gave or volunteered or signed up to be on a committee or invited friends to an event or came to a thank you note writing party or hosted a mini fundraiser in our living room. We each did what we could because that's what we do when our village is hungry. We bring together what we have and we do the best we can. And sure enough, each contribution, large or small, melded together beautifully and became even more than any of us could have expected or envisioned beforehand. And along the way, we were each blessed too. We made friends, we found purpose, and together we built the kind of community that we want for our children and grandchildren. Generosity will do that, it'll put shoes on a child and a song in your heart along the way. We just crossed a big milestone at the Landing, our emergency shelter for children entering foster care for the very first time. You heard Lori describe the origins of the Landing, and I know that many folks here volunteer their time to make that place warm and welcoming, just a wonderful environment for children. And since it opened, 800 children have spent at least one night there. 52% of those kids came to us with a sibling who, without the Landing, they would have been separated from. 56% of those children were 6 years old and younger. And 40% of those children arrived at the landing in the back of a police car with just the clothes on their back. We did that. We came together not around an empty pot, but around an empty house and decided we were going to make something special. And it's been filling tummies and giving good night's sleep since 2015 because we keep showing up around that empty house and making that same magic together. And now there are 2 landing locations, one here in Bellingham and a second in Ellensburg, which is the same beacon of hope in that community. You know, the magic of the landing is that it's predominantly staffed by volunteers. That's men and women just like you who believe in the mission. They get some training and pass a background check and then put themselves on the schedule a few hours each month to be available whenever kids are in need. And that's the only way this thing would work. Our costs to operate are roughly a fifth what comparable emergency shelters need to operate without volunteers playing such a prominent role. In fact, the 2 largest in our state operated by a sister agency didn't make it through the pandemic. And that makes the landing even more vital to the health and function of our foster care system than ever before. And you know, a funny thing happens when people across our community are rolling up their sleeves to help kids by volunteering at the landing. Many of them decide that they want to do even more. So over the last several years, we have trained, licensed, and supported families as they welcomed foster children into their homes and hearts. We go about the job of foster care a little differently. Our staff and the foster homes that we support maintain a laser-like focus on helping these families to reunify. That means doing just a lot more than keeping kids safe while their parents walk the hard, lonely road of recovery. It means jumping down into the mess with them and hoping for their best, being their champion and cheerleader. Sometimes the only one. And at the same time, being stable and kind and patient, the sort of presence that every child needs in their life. It's hard, it's emotionally fraught, and there is absolutely no substitute for it. And to give us an even better vantage to support these families as they work toward reunification, we also take on the job of supporting parent-child visitation. This is time, precious time, that the families torn apart by foster care enjoy every week to be together, to repair and strengthen the bonds of love between them. For many of the parents struggling with their own demons, this time amounts to the greatest hours of their week, and the only time that feels normal. And we have the distinct honor of making sure that not only it happens every week with consistency, but that it is safe and healthy and productive for everyone involved. We do a few other things too. You heard Abby describing, we're always innovating. This is the core of Skookum Kids, though. Emergency receiving care at the landing, reunification-focused foster care, and family time. That's what we do. And just like in the story, what we make together at Skookum benefits everyone in our community. I want to read you a line out of the Federal Report on Adverse Childhood Experiences. It reads, "Child abuse is our gravest and most costly public health issue in the United States. Its overall costs exceed cancer and heart disease. If we eradicated child abuse in America, we would reduce the overall rate of depression by half, alcoholism by 2/3, and suicide, IV drug use, and domestic violence by 3/4. When you invest in the health and recovery of kids who have been abused or neglected and find themselves for a short time in foster care, you are making a very high leverage investment in the overall health of your community. When you volunteer, when you donate, when you help spread the word about the needs, you are doing a lot of good, not just for some kids out there somewhere, but for yourself, for your family, for your neighbors. Because these kids, when they're cared for like we know how, they don't grow up to live on the street and commit crimes and abuse their own children. No, they aspire to build for themselves the kind of life, the kind of family that they were invited into as a child. They know they are loved, if not by the people that they expected to love them, then by some random strangers who made sure they were safe and fed at the landing and read them story after story until they fell asleep, and who made them part of a new family, who believed in their parents when nobody else did. Kids who get that kind of care, it changes their lives forever. Now, I know it can be hard to see that from this vantage. It takes decades, and this pot cannot be rushed. And if you're not in the house every month or a foster family yourself, you don't have the honor of bearing witness when a healing child's personality blossoms for the first time. But there is nothing more sacred, and it signals the change that's coming, the change that we are making together. So I hope that these stories we share by video and through social media can be the reminder that you need, because we are working together at the root of some of society's biggest and hardest problems. And if we can get this right, well, I want to live in a world where we have gotten it right. Now, none of this is new. If you've been around Skookum for a while, you know this has been the core of our work for years now. What's changed for us in 2022 is that the cost of doing all these things, after being very stable since we opened our doors back in 2015, has gone up by about 20% this year. And the terms of our contracts with the state of Washington, our revenue in general, has not gone up by 20%. And I just gotta be real with you, that is scary. In some ways, it feels like we're back where we started, out in the cold with an empty pot and a stone. But it means the future of Skookum will be built in the same way that our storied past has been, through a community, a collection of individuals who each say, I believe in what we're doing here together and I want to help. So, just to give you all the specifics, our budget this year is $1.8 million. Roughly a third of that comes to us from contracts we have with the state of Washington, which are very stable and predictable. Underfunded, mind you, but that's for another speech. They're stable, so that's what counts. The rest, a full 2/3 of our budget every year, comes in the form of generous gifts made by individuals, businesses, churches, service clubs, and family foundations. 2,385 different households made some kind of financial contribution to the work of Skookum Kids last year. That is a lot of people who liked the smell of what we're cooking enough to bring a little something from their own pantry and toss it in the pot. And so far this year, our community's generosity is tracking very closely to 2021 levels. But like we talked about, it costs a lot more to care for vulnerable kids now than it did a year ago. For years, it only cost $100 per child per night to operate the landing. And that's just not true anymore. Today, it's at least $120 per child per night. And if you've been to Costco or put gas in your car lately, I'm sure that you understand why. Now, if you'd like to help, there are a few ways to go about it right now. By far, our favorite is a monthly pledge of support, which you can set up at skookumkids.org/give. Faithful monthly giving creates a stable foundation of support so that we can plan for the future with confidence. Now, many of you already have a monthly pledge established, and that's awesome. Thank you. And to you, I would ask, would you consider renewing, and if you're able, increasing the amount of your pledge? Others Support the work of Skookum, or maybe intend to, but not in a structured way, not with a pledge. You give when you think of it, when you see a video, or you come to an event, or you read our newsletter, and that's great too. And to you, I'd ask, you believe in what we're doing together, and you've heard the situation. Will you help? Now, others are really just learning about the work of Skookum Kids now for the very first time. And to you, I'd say, welcome. You are arriving at exactly the right time, and we are so glad you're here. Skookum Kids is a way for everyone to participate in foster care. I've been talking mostly about the money here, but in addition to giving, there are lots of ways to get involved. Maybe you can volunteer at the landing. Maybe you can become a foster family yourself. Or, of course, I'd like you to consider making a pledge of monthly support. And to all of us, I would ask, who do we know? Which of our friends care about children and should see this video too and be inspired? Because we can all bring something to throw into the pot. We can tell our friends about how good the cooking smells. And that is how we make the future of Skookum as bright as its past has been legendary. Together. We'll do it together. Visit skookumkids.org/give right now to pitch in. I really love this thing we've built together. It cannot exist into the future without your ongoing support. So thank you.